I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Monday's morning meeting. And if I can get, and if we can approve the agenda as presented,
Make the motion.
Second.
I have a first and second. All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Motion carries. Approve the minutes from the January 19th, 2026 regular session.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
First and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Approve employee claims filed with the county auditor for $190.65.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a first and second, all in favor? Aye. Approved claims filed with the county auditor for $164,244.20.
$245.20.
I'm sorry, $245.20. Thank you.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Motion carries. We do have somebody that was willing to step forward and become an appointment for the Pioneer Cemetery Commission. Her name is Jodi Grover. And I have a motion to approve that appointment.
Make the motion.
Second.
And first and second, all in favor?
Aye. I think we still have 2 openings on that board,
I think
or
one.
just one.
Yep.
One opening.
I think one, I don't remember off the top of my head. I think we had 2, so this is one of them.
Yeah, I believe it.
If somebody else has a desire to be part of the Cemetery Commission, please step forward if we're willing.
Especially if you're a history buff, because it's a lot about history.
It is interesting. Approve the minor plat for Ryan and Heather Amfahr. I have. Amber, you're with planning and zoning?
Okay, so I'll just kind of start off. You guys had approved to rezone the entire parcel. It was roughly about 3 acres. To October of last year, to R3 residential. I'm just kind of running through the checklist. So we have Crawford Engineering as a surveyor. There was an easement required for the driveway since the parcel will be split in 2. From the survey, there was a section notated towards the driveway, which outlined that easement. I can go back to that here in a minute. So we received the minor plat fee, the aerial survey, the attorney's opinion, legal description, lender's consent, owner's consent. Plat of survey we didn't get, which generally, as long as we have the area, we're good. And then the treasurer's certificate as well. This was sent to county approval for the auditor, assessor, attorney, engineer, GIS, treasurer, and then of course myself. I usually leave my decision last to make sure that it aligns with every other department. I didn't have anything that stood out for comment wise when obtaining the approval for this. I'll just kind of note, so the engineer, they were good with it as long as there was not going to be an additional driveway. And there is not. There's only going to be one for both parcels there. So again, no concerns on that. And then just to kind of run back through. So here's the plat of survey. So you can see towards the bottom of the driveway, they've got it blacked, and then there's lines kind of going diagonal. That's where that 35-foot driveway easement is located. And just to run through some of the documents. So here we have the attorney's opinion that was completed. No concerns from that. We have the consent of platting. This would be the lender's consent, stating that they're okay with the parcel being split in 2. Then we have the owner's consent. So Ryan and Heather stating that they're both okay with it being split. I need the notary from that. And then the treasurer's certificate, stating that the treasurer was okay with the split being completed as well. So everything was in compliance and checks out. Any questions?
I think we discussed this in depth when we went for the rezoning request, so I'm good with it.
Yep, this is just their final
Any
questions.
questions? Keith?
I'll make the motion that we approve the minor plat for Ryan and Heather Amfahr.
Second.
I have a first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Excellent.
Thank you, Amber. Appreciate it. All right, next up is meet with Fred Smock regarding the RASH ride.
That's pretty well organized there.
Thank you.
So Rash Ride, we're moving it back to June. We've been same as Rubik's for the last several years because of insurance. And if you remember, if any of you guys were on the board about the insurance, but it was the supervisors who requested it. We got it years ago. Our price got up to about $900 is why we moved it to go with them. Now we've actually found it for under $300 for this year. And what the insurance does is it covers liability if somebody who's on a bicycle creates an accident for an automobile or somebody else. So that's what it covers. It has nothing to do with the bike rider, so to speak, other than if they do something stupid.
Do you want to take the opportunity to describe what the RASH ride is, what it's doing?
Sure. Rash Ride's 24 years old now. Next year will be our 25th year. It's basically kind of a pre-RAGBRAI warm up for a lot of people who are riding. We pick different directions to go. This year, we're probably going to go to the east. And why I say probably, that was 100% the plan until we realized that RAGBRAI is coming to town. So we may follow their route a little more so, depends on where it is. It might create more excitement for them towns and get people prepared. So it's usually a 25-mile ride. We used to have a 50-mile ride. We might go back to that this year as an option. Most of the people will still just do 25. So from here, our sponsored bar will leave from there. It hasn't been announced yet, but we'll leave from there and we ride and go County Home Road out to Old 20 to Winthrop, and then back from Winthrop to Quasqueton, and then back up to Diagon. That's at this point that's the route, but it might change. The 50-mile route would always go that way, but then you go Raleigh over to Jessup, Littleton, and back to Independence. And both of them routes are 25 miles. So combination was 50 miles.
I'm sure you always coordinate with the sheriff's office and let them
Yeah.
know what's going on, so.
What's the date? June
20th,
20th, okay.
Saturday, June 20th.
You need approval for us, or is there anything?
I think we are supposed to have approval because then we buy our terms and accordingly.
Yes, for a motion to approve so that Fred can go get the insurance and get his stuff done. Yeah.
I'll make up that motion.
Yeah, second.
All right, I have a first and a second. All in favor of the RASH ride on June 20th? Signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. I appreciate it. Okay.
Well,
Nikki,
on Saturday night, Fred and I went to Des Moines. Go ahead, do you want me to get them?
up here, please. This way the microphone can pick you up.
On Saturday night, Fred and I went to Des Moines for the RAGBRAI overnight party. Is that better?
Yeah, I just didn't want it to catch your midsection on your face.
Okay. The overnight announcement party for RAGBRAI Independence will be an overnight stop on Thursday, July 23rd. And it is, obviously, we know they were in Buchanan County already last year, and they're coming back because we are Independence and it's America's 250th. So they're going to get a party, right? That's what they're expecting after Fred on Saturday night. So, so yeah, I just wanted to come and let you know that they would be coming. And so.
Yep. You guys have any questions?
I think you usually ask for a letter of support from us. so.
We already did. Yep, we got that.
Great,
Yep.
fantastic.
Yep. Yeah. So it'll be crazy 6 months, I guess.
I guess as soon as we get the actual route,
Yeah.
we want to make sure we get that so we can share with secondary roads so they can go out and
Yes.
inspect it. And
Yep.
make sure that there's.
And they will
The
do
other thing that you do or will do is set up some kind of an ordinance as far as people setting up their booths or fundraisers or anything along the road. So we, the county, we, the committee, and we, the health department, need to know who's out there. So you'll pass an ordinance along the route saying that they have to apply or get a
Permit.
or permit to be
We
on it.
have what we've done in the past on those,
Okay.
so,
I don't remember doing
Yeah,
that.
I don't either. Thank you.
yeah,
Did we do it a year ago?
that I don't know.
I don't recall.
Cause yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for bringing it up.
a lot of times, and correct me if I'm wrong, cause it's been a while. The vendors will go through RAGBRAI instead of permitting through us.
So,
And there's quite a few of them that will just plain contact the farmer and try
Yeah.
to set up without a vendor.
Correct.
And here in our county, and I don't think they're gonna go that direction, but if they do go through our Amish community, which is great for them guys. But one of the biggest fears that they have is cream pies. Cream pie in the sun, don't mix and create all kinds of cultures and make people sick. But they've been through here several times and work with them, and our food and health people go out there also.
yeah, thanks for bringing it up.
Is there anything else? And once we know the route, then we can make sure that emergency management knows it, public health knows the
Oh,
route.
yeah, we'll start, meetings with, RAGBRAI February 4th. A lot of those people have already been notified, like Scott knew a while back. Some of them have already been notified, that we are having meetings, so they can put them in their calendars and when their meetings are, so yes.
Most of our committees are set up.
Yes.
There's still a couple of them that aren't set up yet, but most of them are already set up.
For sure. It's coming from Marshalltown, so
It's gonna be a long ride.
it is the longest day, and it is also the 100-mile day. So it's 81.9 miles, whatever the route they're taking from here to from Marshalltown to here. And then they have that optional extra to make it 100 miles. So it's the shortest RAGBRAI in history.
I'm thinking that I would die.
And we're the
after 10
longest
miles. I
day.
can't imagine trying to make it an extra.
70, so yeah. So Thursday, July 23rd will be the day that they're here,
And leaving on the.
on the 24th, yes.
Is that gonna coincide with anybody else's town celebration? Do we know? Shouldn't, because it's a Thursday.
No, and fair already be over,
Okay.
so.
Days be over, I think fair, Jessup days will be over.
Winthrop is the 20th of June, same day as our ride. But that.
And I don't
this will
think
be over.
Brandon and Lamont, or Brendan and Aurora have theirs on the same day, and it's like in
Brandon Lawn is
August.
Just like the
And
first
same-
weekend in August.
And Raleigh's is that weekend, because they always do theirs at the beginning of like dead week for high school, so it will be, they will start theirs Friday night, but it goes to Dyersville from here, so I'm not sure that they would even be going through Raleigh for any reason,
Okay.
so. I mean, weirder things have happened, right? So you never know. But it's only 45 miles, they said, I think, from here to Dyersville, so I wouldn't imagine them going that way.
They're going fairly straight.
Yeah.
They'll probably go to Winthrop, I guess.
Uh-huh.
That's the concern is how many other towns does it pick up? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know that for sure. I could also see them going down through Pulaski and cutting across some of the more county roads.
Yeah, they could do that too.
Got a nice couch diagonal road. That's
Right.
for 'em.
Brian did us a solid before he left with that nice new Pulaski diagonal Spencer going.
When do they give out the through towns?
It's actually gonna be about 2.5 months from now. So it's a while, but they'll contact you before they have the route. And they'll go to the yourself and the county engineers and all them that, so they'll have a good idea of where they're going. One of the first things they try to check is what the road conditions are gonna be. So if you've got a bridge project or anything like that going on, they're aware of it. And then
Yeah, on the YouTube, they said the first week of April.
Yeah.
Letting us know about the road,
Yeah,
or the route.
yeah, so they're, right now, they're, as of Saturday, now they're driving all the secondary roads in town. They have to go to all their city councils and get permission. that stuff, so you'll see it start showing up on people's ledgers.
Yes,
Thank you.
best wishes.
Yep, and once you get that route finalized, Fred, please let me know.
Yeah. We'll let you know. You'll know. They'll be in here with these guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Alright, next up is capital assets policy update and fixed asset requirements. Chris?
Okay, so the auditors were in, I think last Thursday was their last day, going through everything. One of the things I discussed with them is our capital assets policy, which basically we are required by law. It's the GAAFR, Governmental Accounting, Auditing, and Financial Reporting. Initially, our policy, our first one was passed in 2015. Most counties, per the auditor, had told me that they have upped their capital asset policy. So like our past one, our infrastructure was 50,000 and counties are moving it to 100. Land and buildings was 25, moving it to 50. Equipment and vehicles was 5,000, moving it to 10, and then leased assets as 50,000. So basically, all that I'm doing is I'm asking the board to approve an updated capital assets policy, kind of bring us up to times. And also along with that, I had included in your folder. When department heads buy anything fixed assets, it's always been the policy that they have to do a fixed asset sheet, turn it into us for anything over $1,000. If we track that mainly that amount for miscellaneous insurance. Well, it's kind of hard to buy anything for $1,000 that we really need to insure anymore. And so they suggested raising that. So I would like the board's approval to raise that to purchases 3,000 or over.
Okay.
So then, once the department makes that type of purchase, same policy in place, they fill out the form, they send it to us, we give them an asset tracking tag. And then that also goes to our insurance.
And I think if I recall correctly, when I seen the sheet at County Conservation when I was working there, I think it was signed by Ralph Kramer. That was how old it was. So I don't think it's been updated for quite some time.
Correct.
Yeah, 3,000. What's our insurance? Is it 10,000 minimum, right?
Our deductible on our
Yeah.
insurance is 10,000. That was raised a couple years ago.
I don't see an issue.
No, it was right, yeah.
With the way prices have gone up on everything.
So basically, I need a motion to approve the new capital assets policy and the fixed asset resolution.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
I have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. And then our next thing is fiscal year 27 budget update.
Okay. So that's moving.
And you're holding up.
I'll make it bigger for you.
Yeah.
So what this spreadsheet is we get this from the Department of Management. And it's how we calculate what our levy rates can be for our valuations, okay? So our valuations FY 27, if you see them over here in column K, our valuations were 1,435,714,400. This over here, this in column C, that is what our levy rate was for FY 26. This was the dollars we taxed for. So this spreadsheet automatically calculates the limitation percentage and what we are allowed to tax for FY 27, which is this figure right here.
Chris, can you send us a print out of that?
Mm-hmm.
Or
No,
maybe the electronic file, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm kind of confused. So we're allowed to tax for less this year than what we were last year, not even the same?
No,
Am I reading that right?
your levy rate is going down.
Okay,
The next one in column E, right here,
uh-huh,
that's the dollars.
okay,
Because our taxable valuations went up, even though our levy rate goes down, our what we can ask for is still more.
That's that 2% growth limitation or something.
That is correct. That's right here, 2%. The next one down is our rural. And that's what, we don't have any limitation on that because we are not capped at our rural. I think the rural is 3 something. I'm sorry, I don't remember off the top of my head. But basically, this is, if we kept our percentage the same, we'd be getting the 2.7 million. So now, the fun part,
Mhm.
make it bigger. Okay, column B, this is what we did last year.
mhm,
This is our tax levy. This is what we are required for general and sub. At this point, I have just left the rural as is. I will address that later. Down here on 8 where it says property tax levy, this is the dollars we asked for last year for FY26. This is what we are allowed for FY27. It's basically the same as that spreadsheet I just showed.
okay,
This is what we need right here. 5.5. We're allowed to tax 5.3. We're short 173,000.
I guess we go back to all the department heads and tell them they need to cut their budget. What percentage would that be?
I don't know.
Question.
I have some other options, so hold on.
Oh, yeah.
All right, options are good.
Okay, so if you look at your general stuff right there, we currently need 2.5.
It's about 3%, by the way.
We're allowed to tax 2.6, so we can cut that by 78,000. Rural basic, we currently need 2.6. We're allowed to tax 2.653. So what we can do is our dollar amount for Gen Sup and rural basic, we can reduce. In order to get this figure down, the one thing my suggestion is A, take a look at your outside appropriations. B, as you know, you approved a fund transfer from the general fund to the general supplement fund. We could possibly reduce that. I mean, I can run some figures and bring them back to you. But if we do reduce that, then that will end up changing our general sup fund. My whole goal was to be able to ask for this dollar amount again out of the general basic, the 5.1.
Yeah, I didn't want to, I wanted.
And at this point, unless you guys can, I think that's about 300 and some thousand between the 5.1 and the 5.54, once you do all the math. Unless you want, it's your decision. I'm just presenting the numbers.
I have a question. What did we have last year in carryover? Is there enough in carryover plus leaving us enough if we come into a bind to make that difference up?
I have no idea what the carryover was last year. I can't remember all of that.
Okay,
I mean, yes, we have a fund balance. We could, ask for the tax asking of the 5.3, and this will eat our fund balance. Or if the board wants to keep the tax dollar askings lower than what it was, or the same as what it was last year, that's where we gotta figure out how you're taking it down to the 5.1 instead of the 5.5.
he answered her question about the carryover.
Mhm.
Seems to me, I remember that it was less than $200 for each that
So-
we had.
The easiest way to figure out the carryover is, for example, we just went through that budget and we re-estimated a lot of the requested funds for FY 26 lower. We've already taxed for that money. So whatever went down, that's going into the fund balance at the end of the year, unless God forbid something comes up and there's a expenditure needed.
So I mean, in last year, like whatever we did spend out of capital improvements or the one line,
goes
that
in.
would have all gone back into the general fund. So I mean,
Yes,
we
if
have,
it's taxed out of the general fund, it goes
Yep.
back into the general.
so I mean, we have, there should be some there. I just don't know how much.
Oh,
I don't,
yeah,
I
there
mean,
is.
if there's enough, then I don't want to raise taxes, obviously, but I don't want to cut it short either.
What are our limitations between transferring between the general fund, general sup and rural basic? Are we allowed to do that? If we have a plus of 173 and
Are we allowed to transfer from the general fund to the general supplement?
that's my question.
Yes,
Okay,
and we've done that for years and you've approved it in the
I
budget.
thought we had, thank you. Would you mind clicking and dragging from 173 and those three cells, the 173, 78 and 41? It'll sum up in the bottom down there. Just to see what the difference is between them.
I guess I'm confused by which ones you wanted to click on.
Click and drag on the 173,000.
We'll do that,
Okay.
but that's not gonna make a difference on what you do because these are all three of these are separate tax askings. They come from different areas.
Just trying to figure out what the difference in.
Anything in rural can't go into general.
That is correct, yeah.
It's a plus on the sub general and then negative in the rural, so.
No.
That way.
No, we are short in the general. The 173,
Oh,
we're
see, I went
short.
backwards. Thank you for that.
And the
Yep.
general fund, what does that basically pay? I mean, like the
Pretty
big.
much absolutely everything.
So all of our insurance comes out of the general fund. All
Are
of
you
the,
talking insurance for what?
for our buildings and,
Supplemental.
No, that comes out of general sum.
okay, what about employees' wages? Is that all out of general or is that out of, some of it out of rural?
Some of it's out of rural. The majority of it is out of the general. Sheriff's deputies, part of Amber's is rural. But the majority of the employees' wages comes out of the general fund.
Okay. And,
That's where the majority of our expenditures are,
okay,
is out of the general.
new vehicles except for secondary roads comes out of that too. And so
Sheriff's office comes out of rural,
sheriff's office and secondary roads
rural-
will both come out of rural.
yes,
Okay.
but not all of the sheriff's office wages come out of rural. It's only the patrol deputies.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out where our big expenses were. I mean, I don't remember anybody really raising their,
There's a couple of departments that had higher, but I mean, there's probably 7 departments that lowered their budget from last year and still gave themselves for the raise.
Well, if you look at this figure, this 300,000 figure here, that's a total increase in dollars from all three funds. If you divide that out by 26,000 parcels, that's not much of an increase. However, if it's some, like, I'm gonna say farmer that owns a lot of parcels, it makes a big difference.
Right.
My biggest concern is, and I don't get to make the decisions, I just didn't want to see an increase this year.
same.
So that's up to you guys what you wanna do.
I think we're on the same wavelength. I don't want
Yeah,
to increase
right.
either.
Is there a way that we can transfer from some sort of savings, some sort of account that we have carried over?
No. If you choose for me just to tax the 5.186 like we did last year, then what is ever left in our fund balance, that's what's gonna come out of that.
There you go.
Well, we need to know what's in the fund balance before we just start making that decision though too. I mean, if there's only $100,000 in the fund balance, it's not gonna cover it. I mean, if we have a couple million in the fund balance, spending it down by that amount of money is not gonna hurt us.
Yeah, what, 13.5 set aside? At this point?
You have what?
We have 13.5 set aside, 13.5 million.
I've not ever heard that from our auditor. I have never heard that
I don't
kind of
know.
figure.
I don't know.
We upped it from 12.5 million to 13.5 million. What was that fund?
I have no idea where you're getting those figures. Can you explain that? Cause I don't know.
Okay, I'll check my notes. Thank you.
I guess I'm a little confused because I've never heard those numbers before. As far as, I mean, we don't have that kind of money sitting around. Wish we did.
I mean, I can play around with it about possibly lessening the transfer from the general fund to the general supplement and report back, and then you guys can make the decision if you want departments to try and cut, or if you're just gonna roll with it.
Seems like something we ought to review then.
Okay, and,
Cause I know last year when I presented these figures, we were within our max allowed. And it was a tax increase of like 458,000 last year from FY 25 to FY 26. And all three of you said that was fine. And you didn't know where we could cut anymore. So that's what we went with last year
right,
when I proceeded to do the proposed tax hearing.
and I would like to see how much do we have left in those fund balances to see if we have room to approve what we have right now without raising taxes, to see if we can spend those down
Yeah, that's a good
and
idea.
fiscally responsibly spend those down. I don't wanna, I mean, if we ever come to an emergency, I wanna have funds there, because borrowing at 6% interest for an emergency is not always your best option either, then that costs us more.
That is correct.
You did mention that we're about to pay off one of the bonds, the GEO bonds. So,
That comes out of debt service. That does not come out of general basic, general stuff or world. That's a completely different fund, a different taxation that you're
sure,
not.
I guess my point is that we're not gonna have to worry about that expense in the future.
That is correct, but it's a different taxing fund.
Sure, thank you.
I'll work on it this week and I can put it back on the agenda for Monday. This is something that we have to keep moving so I can get the proposed tax notice done and get all the publications done within the time frame needed.
I appreciate it, Chris.
But once I get final numbers together, I will ask for you guys to approve them by resolution before I send everything out.
Understandable. Does anybody else have any other questions regarding the budget update information?
No, thank you.
Okay. So next we come up to set the rate for EMS taxation for fiscal year 27. I'm having a hard time doing that, or wrapping my head around doing that without some information from Maggie and knowing what direction we're gonna go.
I have to have it for my budget.
I know, I understand that. We have Maggie coming up next. Can we have Maggie first and then? I don't know if that's gonna make a difference, but I just hate to say,
That's fine. Not my decision.
That's
I just cannot complete a budget without that.
yeah, I understand. I understand. So are you okay with having Maggie first?
Yep.
All right. And Chris, can you come up here for this decision or for this discussion also, because you were kind of in on, you helped pull all the numbers together, so.
Done it, Dan.
Or Dan, I'm sorry. You look like your dad. I went to school with your dad.
Good morning, everybody. This is Maggie at Speer. How are you?
Maggie.
Hang on, Maggie, I'm gonna put you on the big screen.
Oh, great. Thanks.
I figured
Thanks
you'd
for
like.
letting me come into the meeting virtually today. I'm a little under the weather, so I do not want to spread whatever germs I have with all of you. So my apologies. I did have a conversation after our last meeting with John Danos of Dorsey and Whitney, who's your bonding attorney. We discussed that chapter 422D, which allows you to go to a vote and to then have a tax levy, like you were just talking about with the item that's technically on the agenda before me, levying against that tax levy or levying for those taxation of dollars for this program for your ambulance services planning. So unfortunately, chapter 422D allows for you to set up this levy, vote for it as the county did, and approve it and levy for those dollars and spend those dollars. 422D does not give you any special privileges to borrow any money over and above current methods of borrowing that the county could do. So it doesn't give you the ability to borrow for, let's say, ambulances under that code section. And unfortunately, also House File 718, which was passed a couple of years ago, removed what we call catch-all language that allowed for you to borrow for things not only like ambulances, but let's say road graders, all kinds of things that you were able to borrow for before, kind of under this blanket of home rule that you are no longer able to borrow for because House File 718 like slipped that in the end and took away those abilities for counties. So we're dealing with this a few different ways. You do have a GO bond option, but it's very limited. The things that you could bond for probably would be the items on that list that were like radios, the software that communicates everything. Altogether, those items on your capital expenditures list were $100,000 or less. So going out and doing an essential corporate purpose bond would only give you about $100,000 of authority to do that. So John said, John's just as frustrated, I guess, as I was that, there's just not these capabilities for borrowing, but there are some options that have always been there for counties to borrow when the other options are limited. This first option would be a general fund loan. This would be a bank loan, so it would be something that would be gone and probably a term sheet put together, and then we would ask the county to send that out to all of your local regional banks in the area. It would explain what the note was, how it was secured, things like that. With this, the amount that you're limited to borrowing cannot exceed the principal and interest of that note cannot exceed 10% of the annual general fund budget expenditures. That should not be a problem. The county's 2026 general fund budget expenditures were $11,855,000 per year budget. So 10% of that is $1,185,000. If we're only talking about needing 1 to 1.5 million, we know the annual debt service on that will not be 1,185,000. So there is the capability of doing this. The authorization is just a public hearing for this. It is really based on capital expenditures, tax exempt capital expenditures, which would be the things that are listed at the top of the list that you've been seeing. And those are things like the ambulances, the radios, the cots, the monitors, the different equipment needed to be in those ambulances for this process. So our recommendation, I guess, would be that we look at the total amount that you need to borrow for all the equipment over the next, let's say, 1 to 2 years, which in my, reviewing the two sheets that we looked at is somewhere probably between about 1.1 million and 1.5 million, and likely going out and doing this debt for those capital expenditures as a general fund loan. Again, what it basically says is, your security is that you would pay this with general fund dollars, which you were just having this conversation about your budget. You would pay this with general fund dollars if there were no other revenues available. And your other revenues in this situation would be from the levy. So it would not be any intent to pay this from general fund dollars. The intent would be that we structure this over maybe 10 or 11 years. And then you would use some of that money coming in from the levy, insurance reimbursement, things like that over the next 10 to 11 years and pay that note back. We'd probably want to keep that note at that 10 to 11 years just because we really don't want to go out any further than we have to. Typically with a bank loan, you can pay that loan off early as well. And that just means that if the levy is functioning better, because Chris just kind of mentioned, as your valuation goes up, if you continue to levy at the same amount every year, which, your authorization by voters gives you that right to do that. This levy is not subject to any kind of caps or anything like that. you would be collecting more money over time if the valuation of the county continues to grow. And remember, that's not only just new construction, but that could be rollback changes, right? So right now, going into 27, the rollback for residential is 44%, where it was 47%. So just logically, you've lost 3% of a valuation increase. You know, you offset that obviously with new growth in construction. But that, you know, things like that can change and that can increase that levy amount. So I guess I think that our main thought on this is the general fund loan would be a great way to finance those ambulances and other capital expenditures. And that, again, could just be done with a public hearing. I think the bigger question for you guys and the more, the question that's a little bit more relevant or is more a little bit more time relative is this idea of funding your salaries, right? Hiring a director, maybe hiring those other people like EMTs and emergency service workers that are going to start on July 1st. Director, we know, probably starting here sooner rather than later. You'd like to get that position hired. But you know, if you levy this in your budget, the full amount of what you're authorized to do, you are not going to have those dollars flowing in until probably October or November, just because people are going to pay their taxes in September. So, you know, the first time that you're going to really have access to those dollars is going to be in that October, November timeframe. I think from our conversations earlier, we're talking about even a January timeframe, possibly once you start to receive those, you know, insurance reimbursements, things like that. So with that being said, John Dano's had a couple of items. There is the idea that you can do a non-current debt issuance. So Iowa Code Chapter 331-478 allows for you to do what's called a non-current debt issuance. And that does include a revolving line of credit for things like working capital. And working capital in the realm of what we're talking about is salaries and benefits. So you'd be able to do kind of a revolving line of credit with a bank. That authorization would just be to publish a notice that contains the purpose and the amount. So there's not even a public hearing. It is an unsecured debt by the county, which means it could carry a little bit higher interest rate. So I think there's something to be said about that. We would help you calculate, you know, with your the EMS gentleman that you're working with, like how much we think we need in that revolving line to get us from maybe March or April of this year through, let's just say, January of next year. You know, if you had to pay salaries and benefits, knowing that some of that money is going to start to flow in October, November, but, you know, kind of what are we thinking about? The reason that this type of debt is an option is there's a provision in there that calls for a vote of the electorate. And you already had that vote, right? So what they're saying is you can issue non-current debt whenever there's been a vote of an electorate for something related to this, and you've already had that vote, it passed. So that's why John feels like this is a good option if you don't want to internally borrow that money. What again, I think, you know, we could set that line of credit up. John says, you know, maybe for a startup like this, setting that line of credit up for 2 years is probably not a bad thing. And then if you get yourself into a situation where, you know, over time, before you can build up some of those revenues, you know, you're really going to get revenues twice a year until that insurance money and reimbursement starts to flow through, and you know how quickly that happens. So being able to set up a revolving line that you could borrow against, pay back when you get tax dollars in, borrow against again for those types of salaries, pay back, that would be sort of helpful to you. The last option then that you could do, and we sort of touched on this before, I know that, you know, we have to look at cash balances, but it is an internal loan. This internal loan, and we're only talking about this internal loan for the purposes of the salaries and benefits, that working capital. We still think your best option is the general fund loan when it comes to, you know, going out to a bank, getting a general fund secured note for those capital expenditures. So this is really talking about, you know, it could be between $200,000 and $300,000 for an internal loan. That internal loan, again, simply is an internal loan against your fund balance. That just means you look at where you've got some available fund balances and you would transfer those fund balances into a working capital fund. You would pay those salaries and benefits out of that working capital fund. And as soon as those dollars started to roll back in from that levy that you will put into place with your fiscal year 27 budget, you would start to pay those internal loans back. So you would start to just say, well, we borrowed this from the general fund, or we borrowed this from the general supplemental. Chris can tell you if that's legal or not, but you would borrow it. And John Danos can help out in that conversation as well. But you'd borrow it, you'd use it to pay their salaries. And as soon as those dollars started to flow in from the levy, you'd put that back into the area where you originally borrowed it from. The difference here is internally you're doing this. So it's not a debt that is an external debt. You are relying on your own fund balances. I did look in your audit for 24. You have some healthy fund balances, but again, you have to make sure that you're comfortable with, maybe $200,000-$300,000 being tied up like this over the next couple of years. Because I'd say, you're going to pay some of these dollars back over, you're going to probably split that up and not pay it back immediately the day you get all of your money, your first round of taxation in the fall, because you're going to be doing other things, right? You're going to be hiring other people. There's going to be other expenses that are, continually ongoing. So that working capital, you really have these two options, this non-current debt, this internal loan. Our recommendation with this would be to borrow it internally if that is available to you, if you are comfortable with that. It is going to be your least costly option. You also can borrow internally and charge yourself an interest rate. So that non-current debt, like I said, it's working capital and it's non-current and it's unsecured. So you could go out to the bank and it might be a 6% interest rate, where I think the capital borrowing out, a general fund loan, that could be something closer to 4.5% interest rate on those capital expenditures. But a non-current unsecured debt could be somewhere in that 5.5% to 6% interest rate range. If you borrow that internally, we'd tell you to look at what you're getting on your investments right now and charge that as your interest rate. So if your investments are getting 3.75 or 4%, that's what I would charge yourself in interest, so that you can make up for the money that you're taking out of those funds and using for these projects until you get yourself paid back. You shouldn't have to lose interest if you are, internally borrowing these. So, we say that, it would be best if you could borrow them internally on the working capital side, or the salaries and benefits. If no funds were available, then obviously we would, have to go that non-current debt issuance with the local bank. And really, again, this is probably the more pressing issue because of the salary and benefits item. I know that you are prepared to probably start purchasing some ambulances as well. And I'm sure that's coming up as well. So likely these are all kind of falling in at the same time. I think a little bit more towards the working capital is what your thoughts are, probably a little primarily. So with that, I'd answer any questions that you have, talk through any of these, stuff like that. I think the next question, Dawn, that you're going to have based on what, you moved me up is, should you be levying the whole amount? The answer is yes. Whatever your voters authorized this year, I think you should be levying personally the whole amount, because not only are you going to have these startup costs, but you have to operate the system for a year. And I think you've been shown that, you're going to operate it pretty thin, meaning that, there probably won't be a lot left over. And if there is some left over, that's okay. Because again, this is not an area where you don't want to have some fund balances in the future. You want to have fund balances so that year by year, as you're going, you're kind of setting some money aside for other purchases that will need to come up in the coming years.
It all makes a lot of sense.
Having that revolving loan fund, that seems like a good idea. I'd almost use that as a secondary option to borrow it internally, and that way it's a great backup in case we need it.
I need to see the fund balance before we can agree to borrow it internally, but I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you definitely can do that. I mean, that's the thing. We could just take like 300,000. And again, I'm just throwing a number out there. I think we need to work and say, what do we really think in salary and benefits for the director from here until here? I mean, we've got the number of what the annual salary is going to look like, but we know then there's going to be some people coming on July 1st. And again, money's not going to be flowing in until, per se, let's say September, October. So I think we set that up and, you know, maybe it's 200, 300,000. And if you just set that money aside, pull it out of whatever fund balance and just use that money to pay those. But again, start to pay that back and put that internal loan over a couple of years. Your goal would be that you just work down on paying that back a little bit more than you're borrowing against in the future. But John Danos also thought it was a good idea, whether that was internal or external, that kind of that revolving fund for salaries and benefits was not a bad idea. It gave you a little bit of room to make some of those hires happen in the time that they need to happen.
Okay, so I wanted, so with the timeline on starting up, when is our contract up with AM?
October 31st.
October 31st. So we need to have people staffed and on board and an ambulance up and running by October 1st.
Long before that, because you
Long.
have to get state authorization and you can't get authorized if you don't have ambulances or staff. So the timeline the association or the advisory council was looking at was like hiring staff after July 1st to give them a couple months to be trained, onboarded, familiarized with everything. And ambulances, in my opinion, should be purchased as soon as possible.
Right, yeah.
Because
we
they need to be outfitted with everything.
Yep. Can we start toward any of our insurance, like accepting the insurance Blue Cross Blue Shield with the director on board? Can we start working in that direction? Because I know that takes a long period of time.
Yeah. Once you have a director, you can start all those contracts, the mutual aid agreements, like
Okay.
you need someone in charge that's signing the documents and having those meetings and those discussions. But you don't need the actual staff, you know, because you're not running 911 calls
Right.
Till November 1st.
So we need to have, so for at least 6 months, we need to have salary for staff or salary for a director. We need to have down payments for ambulances. That's what I'm hearing. We need to start working toward getting the medical equipment and pay as we go. I'm assuming paying for some of that.
I don't remember who I sent it to. I sent a spreadsheet that we created that's things that we recommend buying before July 1st and after July 1st. It was essentially all your capitals before July 1st and all your salaries and everything is after July 1st is the general look of it.
And whoever got that spreadsheet, if they could share it with the
I was
other
gonna say,
rest of us,
that didn't work.
because I don't have it.
I don't remember seeing it, so I apologize.
I'd take a copy of that as well when you have that available, because I don't think that I have that updated one.
Sure. Yeah, it was, I sent it after the last meeting we had, that Zoom meeting.
Oh, yeah.
That was a while ago.
Was that the one in December right before Christmas?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, yeah, I'll look back. I don't think that I have a copy of that because I was looking back for that. Yeah, so I would take a copy whenever anybody gets one there at the county. Thank you.
We'll get our first tax payment on this to start paying back loans or whatever in,
What about November?
Start coming in September. Taxes are due in September, so they'll, by the end of September, so after that.
And you're not gonna get insurance reimbursements till probably the first of the year. If you start running calls in November, 60 days, 30, 90 days behind.
Mhm.
They're not normally chronic.
so. John, your thoughts on bonding or?
The non-current debt issuance to me makes the most sense. Even though we're gonna be paying a little higher interest. But we gotta have funds guaranteed sitting there that we can use. And without doing that, it's all pretty questionable.
Right, well, we could have those same funds with the line of credit. And you could have those same funds with borrowing
I
from
think it
yourself.
might have to be both.
And we
I
can,
just, I
we
don't
could,
wanna do a bond because if we can pay it back earlier, I wanna pay it back earlier with bond or stuff. I don't like the payment structure of bonds
And this
personally.
revolving line of credit seems like. it's
You can pay as you go.
available quicker and you can pay it off quicker.
and that's what we're recommending, you know, if we could do, like, again, that either that non-current revolving or an internal revolving, and I'm happy to reach out and work with Chris. As well as, you know, anybody, if Chris is handling the investments, you know, we can look, or if the treasurer is handling the investments, we can look at, you know, where those general fund balances are sitting, where other fund balances are sitting, and determine if there is internal money to be doing that. Again, setting, you know, 200, 300,000 aside and using it until, you know, those dollars start to flow back in, sort of paying that off, coming back. I think that is very capable for the salaries benefits piece of this. I do think though, if the borrowing for capital purchases of the list that we were given, which is ambulances and what I assume is outfitting the ambulances, that was in that neighborhood of about 1.1 to 1.5, and I don't know internally. If I would recommend that you go do that, I think that's where we do talk about doing a general fund loan out with a bank. But again, that's not a per se bond issue. It'll be called a general fund loan. But it will be structured that there will be debt payments on it every June and December. But again, you will start to use some cash from those dollars coming in, and we would structure that. Usually also, Dawn, to your point, banks are very willing to let you pay that off early, right? When you go out to a bond issue, the market investors, these are investments for them and they want to hold on to them. Banks also view that as an investment, but banks are usually willing to let you just give them a 30 or a 45-day notice to pay them off early. So you have a little bit, I would say, more ability to do that than your typical structured bond issue.
Yeah, and when you're talking non-current, you're indicating the revolving, John? Just to clarify.
Yeah, I mean, pick up on the.
I want to make sure that we're all three on the same page.
Right.
Yeah, and I do understand, like, for the ambulances and stuff like that, to go the general fund loan, but I also know that's gonna take a couple months. It always seems like it takes a couple months to get those in place. And do you
Right.
have that?
Yeah, the general fund loan would require a public hearing. Bond counsel would put together that document. We would need that list of kind of things that we know we need to buy here over the next probably, 12 months. Bond counsel, again, would put together that document. That public hearing, you'd set a date of public hearing, hold the public hearing. We'd be able to send the term sheets out to those local banks after that and sort of get that going. So likely you're doing two actions at one time. In a perfect world, we'd be going out and doing the general fund borrowing, as well as setting up maybe that revolving internal loan, if not external. But again, if we can swing it internal, it's going to save you a whole lot, because an internal loan doesn't, you'd put that on your agenda that you have a resolution simply transferring money, setting up this internal loan from this fund, putting it into, we'll call it the ambulance revolving fund for salaries and benefits, or whatever we call that, working capital fund. And that's simply all you need to do. And then that money would be there and available for you to start spending.
I guess looking at the first year startup, just in equipment alone, was $952,000. So you're looking at roughly $1 million. And we need to move forward with that as quickly as possible. And because all these things take time to get. So that's why I'm leaning toward actual bond that we go for. And I understand your reluctance to get locked in on something like that, but in order for this program to be successful, we gotta have those funds.
So do we do that for the startup and then do revolving for the startup equipment, and then do revolving for the salaries and stuff like that? Maybe revolving out of our general fund if we could for salaries up until that.
That would be my suggestion.
Yeah.
Can I throw?
And that
my-
would be our recommendation,
I'm
Dawn.
doing all of this.
Yep, absolutely.
I would highly recommend doing it's not a bond, the general fund loan.
Mhm.
To get those dollars in our hands so we can get the startup, the ambulance, the equipment, the whole shebang going. Because it's gonna take a lot longer than what you think. As far as salaries, because we're already in the process of hiring a director. Do the internal fund loan for getting that started, and maybe whoever becomes the director. I don't know if we can make it, if we have to set a cap at it, I don't know, but that's the route I would go. And then what we need to do is we need to go back into our budget, and we need to put budget lines in for all of this. We'll have our revenue coming in. I've already started trying to set up the fund in our system,
Thank you.
but I'm gonna need I have to put up all the expenditure lines. So that's why I need to know what we are taxing for, so we can finish that.
Right.
That's my 2 cents. I'm the one that's gonna have to be dealing it and doing all the work. That's gonna be the cleanest, and it's gonna get our money the fastest to get the ambulances and the equipment
So
going.
you're saying we have over $1 million to borrow
No,
from our.
that's not what I said. I said, do the general fund loan where we go out to the banks. That's what it's called.
Oh.
Sounds ridiculous that I call it a general fund loan,
Okay,
but
so you're-
that's what they're calling it.
okay, yep, nope, I see, we're on the same page. That's
Yes.
the secured note.
The secured note through the banks, and then do the internal loan to start off, means we're always
Yep.
gonna have to be paying salaries and benefits, probably within a couple months. And as we progress, then we can move funds A to fund B to continue this.
Yep, nope, I agree. I think we're talking the same.
Yeah. The reason it's called a general fund loan is the security is the general fund, right? It's not a debt service levy. So when you go borrow a GO note, your full funding, your full faith and credit of the debt service levy is the backing. That's the security. When it's a general fund, it's the general fund that is backing it, but you don't have to pay it with general fund dollars, just like you don't have to pay GO debt with debt service dollars. You just have to pay it with another source. Your other source will be this tax levy that's coming in, right? Like you'll use that over the next 8 to 10 years. That's why it's called a general fund. But Chris, you are absolutely right. It's a ridiculous way to call it because it's not an internal general fund loan. It is an external, but the security is the general fund.
And so that general fund loan, we can pay back using, we can pay it back utilizing
Right.
the
We
tax
put it,
dollars.
correct. We put in there, there has to be a structured debt service schedule because it would be about 8 to 10, probably 10 years long. So there has to be a structured debt service schedule. But I'm going to say this, you aren't going to pay that loan back in the first couple of years anyways, but we're going to put it in there that there's going to be a 30-day notice to pay it back early or to pay it down. So you're likely for the first couple of years going to just make the normal principal and interest payments. And then as time goes on and you start to function more and you start to see what the trends are in this service. And if you're setting aside money every year and you're saying, hey, well, let's pay this debt off early, or let's save that money so that we can borrow other things 8 or 10 years down the road, or buy other things, sorry, not borrow, but buy other things 8 or 10 years down the road. That's what you're going to be dealing with. But yes, we would put it in there. All bank loans that we do, we put in there that there's a 30-day notice for them. You just have to let them know 30 days before you're going to pay them down or pay them off.
Maggie, on the general fund loan, what was your estimated taxing rate?
I would say probably our normal GO tax rate right now is probably at about 4%. Now, sometimes bank loans are a little bit higher, but you've got some great banks in your area that participate on some of the GO debt that we see around the area. So I would assume we're going to see, somewhere between a 4 to 4.5% on that general fund loan, which is an external bank loan.
On that general fund loan, that's the capital expenses. Remember,
Correct.
many grants and donations as we can get means less money that has to be pulled from that. So this is worst case scenario, like where we don't get any grants or anything like that. So keeping that in mind too.
So we just need to come up with what we're gonna need the startup capital without the
Correct.
wages that we're gonna need for the
Correct. Yeah.
for the general fund loan.
Yeah, I think those are the numbers that I need. Like, what do we think these capital expenditures are? And is that the capital expenditures? I'm going to say over the next 12 months, because it's not just now, but is there anything else that, you know, gosh, we're going to buy this, but hey, we may need to buy this as well. Because that money, that general fund money is going to come to you. You're going to be able to invest that money, but that money is going to come to you and you're going to spend it. And if there are leftover dollars, you're going to turn around and hand it back to the bank. I mean, so that, Dawn, could be one of the ways that you pay down that loan early, right? Because if we borrow $1.2 million and you spend $1,150,000 of that amount, you could take that extra 50,000 in 6-8 months when you say there are no more capital expenditures because the money's flowing in, the insurance is flowing in, we're feeling good about this. And you could take that extra 50,000 and go pay it back down to the bank. The bank is going to give you that loan. Where Chris is right, internally, when you do the loan for salaries, you're really only going to draw the money that you need at the time, right? You're going to draw it every month or whatever that you're going to need to pay those salaries and benefits.
Right. So, and going off of what, when I sat through one of the meetings and the manager from Independence, from the city of Independence was there, when Matt was there, he said to remember, don't cut yourself short with this borrowing because you don't want to have to go back and borrow again. So
Correct.
you want, every time you borrow, it costs you the process.
We have those conversations with everybody. But yes, that's exactly right. So, you know, we want to look at that number and make sure. You can also borrow. I want you to understand that it'll cost a very small amount for us to do the term sheet. We don't charge a whole lot for that. We're not going to charge you to help you set up the internal loan. That's, you know, it's internal. We're not externally borrowing. Bond counsel is going to have some costs just because, again, they're going to do the legal paperwork because the bank is going to need to see the legal paperwork and the tax exempt legal opinion, the bank qualified legal opinion. They're going to need to see that. Those costs can all be put into this. So again, if you need $1,100,000 and we think the cost of issuance is going to be $20,000, we'll do the loan for $1,120,000, things like that. So.
I'll have all of our questions for Maggie at this point in time been answered.
Yeah, I believe so.
I
Okay.
believe so.
Okay.
We need to vote on anything to get Maggie cranking.
Yes.
Yeah.
You need to make a decision. We're about out of time
Yep.
on getting the ball rolling with all of this.
Right. So
So
I need,
whatever the board chooses, we need to know. I would really like to know who's going to be working one-on-one with Maggie to get this all taken care of.
I'm board chair. I'll work one-on-one with Maggie.
And Chris, know that you'll be a part of our conversations as well.
And that is perfectly fine. I just don't want the whole thing on my shoulders.
No.
Figure it out.
I'd make
What
a
are your,
motion.
you guys meet every Monday morning? Is that your schedule?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good because I'll let bond counsel know so that we can kind of think. If I could get that updated list, I would like to see that updated capital expenditures list, and I'd like to see the updated kind of expenditures of like salary and benefits. You know, I know that was like the bottom half of that. What I'm going to be looking at is, you know, if it could be marked when some of those hires would happen, that would help me identify that if the salary of the director is this amount, salary and benefits is this amount, and we think that we're going to hire that person in, let's say, March, then what we can do is I can do some divisional math to figure out what we need to have as part of that working line of credit, right? That working capital revolving line of credit. I would look then, like you said, I think there's a couple of people that probably are 3 or 4 people that might be hired by July 1st. If those can just be marked like these would be hires before the tax levy came in, I think those are the ones we're looking at to say, if we had to borrow money for, you know, 2/3 of their salary until we started to see revenues coming in from the levy, revenues coming in from insurance, what does that need to be? That will help us size that revolving loan internally, whether that's 200,000 or whether it's 150 or 300,000, right? So any kind of update to that would be helpful this week to me.
Okay.
Maggie, we would need to get you on the agenda by Friday morning for a Monday next week meeting. So just so you're aware of that time every week as well.
Sounds good. Yep. And again, we'll reach out to John Danos. I have to have those numbers before I can tell him what I need for not to exceed numbers, because the public hearing that you'll hold on the general fund loan, which is the capital borrowing loan, that public hearing has to have a not to exceed number. So I want to look at that, build that, and send that over. And again, I think if I can get those numbers earlier this week, I can work on that, and I can appear then again on your agenda maybe next week to just, and let me just look, I'm looking. Yeah, I don't have anything next Monday morning, the 2nd. I could get over kind of our recommendation, like we should size the capital loan at this, and I'm proposing this for a working capital internal loan. And then that way we can get things really rolling on your agenda for then that next week to kind of keep things moving.
Okay, that sounds good. So we'll have you on the agenda next week.
Yep.
From what I'm understanding, we need to get you a not to exceed number for the general loan.
Yeah. I just need that list updated, because I think I got the list before our, December meeting, but I think there was an update following the December meeting, and I just need that list again so I can sort of look through and say, okay, these are our capital needs, and then these are our working capital needs.
Okay.
Yeah, so nothing's changed since December. All I did was take the numbers and organize them in more of a visual way to understand what was capital and what was salaries, but the numbers themselves are the same as what was approved back in July.
Okay. Well, if you could give us that most updated one that you did in December.
Yeah, so
Get it out to
that's
all
the
of
one
us.
you're speaking of right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
That's
I don't have that one. I'm looking through here and I don't have that one, so.
So those numbers are the same. I just reorganized it to make more sense as far as what's capital and what's what's an operating cost.
Easier on the eyes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
perfect.
that from July is still accurate, it's just not as detailed.
Right. Like, I want
Yes.
you the one from December.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
Yeah,
then we're all on
and-
the same page.
And again, those are annual costs. So, as far as what's going to be needed is going to depend on when you guys start hiring people. So I can get you annual numbers, but beyond that, it's your guys's.
We can do that, simple math as
Yeah.
well, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. Did you have a
All right.
motion?
I would make a motion that we pull together the additional documentation and forward it to Maggie so she can proceed.
Second.
With the,
general fund loan.
General fund loan and also the internal working loan.
Perfect.
thank you.
Second.
I have a first and a second. Do you want a roll call on this, Chris, or do you want all in favor?
I just do it all in favor, because I don't know if I gotta do a resolution or not. I gotta figure that out.
Okay, all in favor?
All right,
Aye. Motion carries.
thanks, Maggie.
All right.
Thank you. Maggie.
Thanks, everybody. I'll get working on that when I see that list again. Thank you.
Thanks, Maggie.
Thank you.
All
Bye-bye.
right, next up is to set the rate for EMS taxation for fiscal year 27.
All recommendations are 75 cents.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, it's a lot easier to bring it down than to tax our residents for a year at 50 cents and then say, oh, sorry, we weren't organized enough. We need to go up to 75.
And I think based on the information we've had in this phone call, the first couple years are gonna have to stay at 75 cents.
I also have one more question. I mean, I'm not, although it gives me personal heartburn, but I'm not too, 75 cents I'm in agreement with. But what do we have left over from that's not spoken for and isn't gonna be used from the COVID money?
200.
Not very much.
I know it's not very much, but I'm wondering if we just throw the rest of it at this project also.
Legally, can we?
Can we throw it at buying ambulances? I would think so.
I don't know.
I sent you guys all
And
the
that's,
stuff, just so you know.
thank
Should
you,
have it.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, and you. Yep.
And that's obviously something we can look into as well, but if we set this maximum 75 cents per thousand, then we can dial that back if we find that there's some other funds.
I don't think I don't think we'll end up having to, maybe next year or the year after, at some point in time, I would like.
It's gonna be at least 2 years down the road before you.
The advisory council's recommendation was a minimum of 2 years at 75 cents.
Estimated 37,000.
37,000
How much? Thank you.
down payment on ambulance.
You were retired. Expensive.
Oh, 37,000, that'll get you,
Not much.
or half a director, or half a year.
I would make a motion that we have the auditor taxed at 75 cents per thousand as we approved.
Second.
I have a first and a second. Do I need a roll call on this one, Chris?
Yes,
Kurt's eye.
Wheeland, aye.
Go the line. And that motion was for the first year, correct? We have to do this one every year.
Every year, right?
I think that's the way I set it up for the resolution and right or wrong, I think that's probably just best for transparency to our residents.
Okay.
Well, that gives us the opportunity every year to evaluate it
Yeah.
and make a decision.
I do believe by law, the advisory council has to make a proposal to you guys on their recommendations as well. So again, it'd be a good time to review and assess.
You bet. Thank you.
Okay, since we're discussing it, we just got that bonding budget through.
Boards and commissions?
Nope, I want to see, we just got that information sent by. And I just want to see if you guys are in agreement with that number. I mean, I would like to actually set it a little bit higher, like the not to exceed limit a little bit higher so that. If we do not to exceed, we can always borrow at less amount, but. I don't want to do a not to exceed and then come back and say, oh, wait a minute, in a week,
Good
we need
question.
more.
Well, can you make that decision and have that discussion next week when you meet with Maggie?
We
Cause
can.
obviously Dan just sent it and I'm sure she probably got it and is
I
working on
don't
it.
have her email, so.
I'm guarding it right now,
Okay, thank
and I'm gonna include you, and we'll have her.
That's consistent with what you described before, so.
And again, not just even the capital, in the top section there, like for example, insurance, sorry, the second half, the contracted services, the second line down on the second graph. That's a full year's worth of contracted services for like a billing service. Obviously, you're not even starting to bill until November 1st. So it's an operating cost, but you're not gonna have that cost until you actually start billing in November. So just to give some,
And their billing is based on the claims that they receive.
yes, most of the medical billing is based on the more money you get back, the more they get. Typically, it's around here
Proportion.
10%. So yeah, if you make 100,000, they're getting 10,000.
When I send stuff off to Maggie, would you two gentlemen like to be included in that? Also, just so you know what's being sent,
That's a good idea.
You
Yeah.
probably should.
so that we're all on the same page? Okay. Do we have any further discussion with any of this? Are we ready to go on to board and commissions?
Board and commissions?
John?
I have nothing more, but
Okay, all right,
you would go to boards, commissions and stuff.
all right, it's moving on to board and commissions.
I could go or you want- Intercog executive meeting, we have a special session this week, it's out of the ordinary, we're putting in a grants application. Northeast Iowa Workforce Development Board, we have a meeting, I actually didn't look at the agenda, so we'll get into it. Of course, we have the ambulance quarterly meeting coming up for all three of us. And that's what I have this week.
Typically, I don't attend those. I mean, because it's just with the CEO of the hospital and
AMR as well. Right?
and one member of AMR and then a member of the county, so. Because
Yeah,
I,
generally, it's just one supervisor that.
I think I've only attended one, so.
I just didn't want to get into forum thing.
With the one out of town last week, I did attend the Buchanan County Tourism meeting. And there's a lot of exciting things going on with the tourism department. They did, receive a, Iowa Tourism grant for $10,400. For, marketing efforts, which is awesome. They did vote to move Buchanan County Tourism officially to the Chamber of Commerce Economic Development Office. As the Friends of the Depot have taken over operation of the depot now. So there's a separate 501c3 corporation. And they'll be in charge of the depot. The tourism office will be, or have an office in the economic development office, which is a good tie-in. They are going to restructure their board seating to whether they're gonna have 5 or 7 board members instead of the current, I think, Don, weren't there about 17 people on that?
It seemed like there was
at
a
one
lot,
point?
yeah. Yeah, and I mean, at one point in time, everybody was pretty active, but then COVID happened and it,
They could not get quorums and it was,
so then we changed what forum was and we sort of had no problem.
so they figured if they had 5 or 7 active members that attended all the time, they could get a lot more accomplished. So they did vote to do that, and so they'll move forward from that. But Isabel's done a really good job as the tourism director, and she's got a lot of enthusiasm, and some good things are happening. So, and they missed you.
I miss them too. There used to be food involved with that group. We'd go to a different place and in a different city and eat. Go big.
And the other board, I attended virtually for the Central Iowa Juvenile Detention. They're working on finalizing their 28E agreement that they will send out to all of us to pass. And then we then apply to become official members again. We are still being charged member rates for any juveniles we send there, but we're just not voting members because of the conflict that they had with the old 28E. So
Are they still giving us member rate services and things like that?
exactly, that's what yeah. So we'll keep you posted on that. Other than that, that was up to the most meaningful things from last week.
So this next week for me is gonna make up for last week because I have ISAC legislative committee on Wednesday afternoon and then the supervisors meetings on Thursday. So I'll be in Des Moines for those 2 days. And there is, on my way to Des Moines, I get to attend a meeting virtually in my car via the telephone. That's through my car. I will have this in my hand, I promise. I believe it's setting up a disaster recovery coalition, if I remember correctly. Citizens advisory for that, and then Tuesday we have the assessor's budget at 6:30-ish. I have economic development at 6. So for the Heartland Acres workshop, I will be attending it, but I'm just going to be late by about an hour. But we will not be having the landfill commission because they weren't able to get the members together after the economic development meeting. And then we have legislative updates on Fridays at 10 a.m. That's a webinar. And if anybody just really wants to have a social life and have some little bit of fun, there's always hot dog Fridays on Friday at the church here in town.
Church.
The one by the post office. Is that St. James Episcopal? By the post office?
I think so, I could be wrong.
They've been doing that for decades, huh?
They have. It's good group. Always fun. And they have other things in hot dogs. So that's all I have. I do have one other thing. I know that last year, or last week, I had asked for everybody to update their personality profiles and to share with the other board members so we can start getting on the same page. If you do that, please. I have John's.
I don't think I'm gonna get involved with that. I've received yours, I threw it in the trash, so.
You threw me in the trash?
I didn't throw you in the trash, I threw your email in the trash.
All right, well,
So I appreciate the offer.
okay. Just trying to be a team. At any rate, are we ready to go to public comments? If we are, just make sure that you state your name for the record and stand, and please keep your comments germane. Do I have anybody for public comment? No takers for public comment?
Okay. I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second.
I have a motion to adjourn. I have a first and I have a second. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.